Your smile always knocks me off my feet. Your smile always knocks me off my feet. Thank you for bringing so much love and joy to my world. You are the best thing that's ever happened to me. Thank you for bringing so much love and joy to my world. Love always, GMG. I hope you get everything you want and more. Happy Friday to the light of my life. Here I am clearing my mind, looking up at the sky, collecting memories. Here I am clearing my mind, looking up the sky, collecting memories. The Reformation. The Renaissance had a say in the religious sphere also. The refinement underwent by the European Christianity in the 16th century is known as the Reformation. Martin Luther led the movement which began in Germany. In search of sea routes, we have seen that the Turks had conquered Constantinople. This dismantled the trade relationship between Europe and Asia. It necessitated the European traders to discover new sea routes to Asia. The invention of the compass and the spirit of adventure uncovered uncommon routes, oceans and continents. Industrial Revolution. The Renaissance in the field of science led to the invention of new machines which brought about the immense changes in the field of production. Consequently, production increased while the cost of production decreased. Such changes in the field of production ushered in the Industrial Revolution. It began in England and revolutionized production and trade. The Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is a famous painting of the Renaissance period. The mysterious smiles of Mona Lisa has led to much discussions and debates. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the famous artists of the Renaissance period, completed the painting in between AD 1503 and AD 1505. It is preserved in the Paris Museum. The Irish lady who was attracted to the Indian culture and took Indian citizenship in 1893. She started Home Rule movement in 1916. The story of printing. The printing press was invented by a German blacksmith Johannes Gutenberg in 1439. It was made of replaceable wooden alphabets. The invention of printing created a new reading culture. This resulted in revolutionary changes in the diffusion of knowledge. Gradually, the technology spread to other continents.
Residents and the First War of Independence. thumb of Nagods. Nagods were the circularists of Bengal. Waves from various countries came to buy the silk they produced. When Bengal came under the rule of the English East India Company, the officials began to exploit the Nagodas. They were compelled to do weaving for meager wages. They were made bonded laborers of the company, deigning opportunity to seek any other means of livelihood. They were forced to live like slaves under the company. The workers who were not willing to obey were tortured. Their properties were seized. They collectively decided to give up their traditional occupation, for it did not help them earn a living. Hence, they decided to cut off their thumbs as a protest against the policies of the East India Company. You have seen the protest of the Nagodas. This was not an isolated event. The company rule adversely affected all the workers engaged in traditional occupations. There were uprisings in different parts of our country against this, who were exploited under the company rule. Farmers, weavers, craftsmen, rebels against the farmers. With the subjugation of Bengal, the attention of the company shifted to the rich agricultural sector of the region. Their aim was to exploit the maximum resource. What were the strategies they adopted? Levied heavy taxes on farmers. No tax concessions were sanctioned even when drought and flood destroyed and agriculture. Middlemen were assigned to the duty of collecting tax. Imposed the condition that the tax was to be paid in the form of cash. The farmers had to depend on sagas, the private money lenders, for loans at a high rate of interest. The company identified that the fertile fields of Bengal were much favorable for growing the commercial crops like cotton, jute, and indigo. These were the major raw materials for the industries in England. Consequently, they decided to expand its cultivation and forced the farmers to do so. The fields that were used only for the cultivation of food crops changed into the plantations of cotton, jute and indigo. As a result, farmers became landless and were forced to become laborers. Several reform movements came up in the 19th century to fight against these evil practices. Social consciences that developed due to English education and rational thinking led to these reform movements. The protesters against the evil customs and superstitions, freedom of women, spread of education, and a sense of pride on Indian culture were the common features of these movements. Let us familiarize with the important reform movements and leaders who initiated them. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who gained Western education, strongly condemned the evil practices like sati and child marriage that prevailed in India. His campaign against sati persuaded Lord William Bentinck, the British Governor General, to abolish sati. He founded Brahma Samaj to propagate his ideology and gave the message that the ideals of all religions and basically the same. He strongly believed caste system to be the major source of disparity in Indian society. He is known as the father of Indian Renaissance. Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Swami Dayananda Saraswati was the leader of Indian Renaissance who attacked caste system and condemned idol worship. Disseminate his ideology, he founded Arya Samaj. He have the call, go back to Vedas. Jyotirao Paul condemned caste system and promoted widow remarriage. He argued that free and compulsory education should be provided to children up to 12 years and gave primary concern to the education of the weaker section and women. For these purposes, he founded the Satya Shodak Samaj. Pandita Pandit Ram Bhai founded Arya Mahila Sabha, an organization for the uplift of women. She fought against the social inequalities faced by women and worked tirelessly for women's education and the empowerment of widows. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan led the movement for the spread of modern education among Muslims. He established Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College at Aligarh that later became the famous Aligarh Muslim University. One of his remarks on the Hindu-Muslim unity is given below. Both Hindus and Muslims breathe the air of India, drink the water of Ganga and Yamuna. We both feed upon the products of the Indian soil. We are together in life and death. Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda fought against the caste inequalities and promoted education among women. He have embassies to the universal brotherhood and remarked for our own mother land a junction of the two great systems, Hinduism and Islam, is the only hope. He was the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He founded the Ramakrishna mission to propagate and techniques of his master. The mission established several educational institutions all over India. He played an important role in awakening the nationalistic feeling and self-respect among Indians. The changing people. The leaders of the social reform movements contributed to develop a vision emphasizing the universal brotherhood based on humanism that stood beyond caste and religion. All the reformers gave emphasis to the importance of education and established educational institutions. This in turn accelerated the progress of education in India. They reminded Indians of their rich cultural heritage and thereby developed self-respect and national pride. Thus, the social reformers played a major role in awakening the Indians. Emergence of nationalism. The different social reform movements and their leaders, whom we discussed, instilled a new spirit among the Indians. We have also discussed the political and economic conditions of the period in the previous chapters. Can you recollect them? The British conquered princely states and unified India politically. The economic exploitation of the British government created an anti-British attitude among Indians. The spread of English education and the development in transport and communication brought the people together. The strangers adopted by the British to suppress the first war of Indian independence created a national conscience and made people think that they belong to the same country. The mountains and rivers of India and the forests and the broad fields which gave us food, we were all dear to us, but what counted ultimately were the people of India, people like them and me who were spread out all over this vast land. Bharat Mata, Mother India was essentially these millions of people, and victory to her meant victory to these people. You are part of this Bharat Mata, I told them. You are in a manner yourselves Bharat Mata, and as this idea slowly soaked into their brains, their eyes would light up as if they had made a great discovery. Jawaharlal Nehru, the discovery of India.
Some places are hot while others are cold. Isn't that so, ma'am?
Yes, we can find some places that are very hot and other places that are very cool. Some places get very heavy rainfall, whereas others do not get any rainfall for years.
How many seasons do we have?
We have 3 seasons in a year. They are winter, summer and rainy.
When does the winter season start?
The winter season begins from the middle of November and continues until mid-March.
December and January are also considered as the months where we can experience the cold in almost every part of India.
The summer season begins in the middle of March and continues until the end of June.
Is true to say that some areas have heavy rainfalls towards the end of summer?
Yes, it is true. In the summer season, we get a lot of mangoes.
What about the rainy season?
The rainy season starts in the month of June. During the rainy months, winds blow from the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal towards the land. They are called monsoon winds.
It's really nice to learn about climate. Thank you very much, teacher. Bye.
Students, let us talk about the different climates of our country. In India, temperature and rainfall vary from season to season and from place to place.
The Dutch were another European force who reached India following the Portuguese. Kochi and Kollam were the chief trade center of Dutch. It was Van Rade, a Dutch governor, who initiated the complication of Hortus Malabaricus, a book on medical plants of Kerala. He completed the book with the help of Litti Achyutan Vaidya. The Dutch fought with Marthanda Varma, the king of Travancore, following the dispute over trade. The dispute were defects in the Battle of Kolchal in 1741. They lost their ground in India with the war. The Dutch were also called Lanthans. You got an idea about Hortus Malabaricus. The adventure of English. The English East India Company was formed in England in 1600 for trade with the countries like India and China. Surat in Gujarat was the first trade center of the company in India. They also established a trading center at Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. French trade relation. The French East India Company was established in 1664 and the French reached India for the purpose of trade. Pondicherry, Mahi and Karaikal were the chief trade centers of French. Pondicherry was their headquarters. The competition for the monopoly of trade. The European countries completed the monopoly trade with India. The Portuguese and the Dutch were defected at the very beginning of these competitions. The French and the English became locked in intensive rivalry and conflict between these forces lasted long. The series of conflicts between the French and the English in South India was known as Carnatic War. Ultimately, the French were defeated. The company gained power. After gaining the monopoly of trade, the English East India Company focused on the acquisition of power in India. The company ruled in India had its inspection in Bengal. Agriculture, prosperity and convenient trade of facilities promoted the company to capture power in Bengal. The British defects Siraj and the Nawab of Bengal in the Battle of Plassey in 1757. The entire Bengal came under the company rule with the success in the Battle of Bruxelles in 1764. The region expands. Mysore was another region that is subjugated by the British. Mysore was a powerful kingdom in South India. It became the dominant power in the region during the reign of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan. Their domination extended even to areas like Malabar. This interrupted the trade of British in Malabar region. The friendly relation that Tipu Sultan maintained with the French also added fuel to the animosity of the British. This made them conquer Mysore. Tipu fought bravely with the British and died fighting the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. With the success of the British in Mysore War, Bangalore and Koguru come under the British region.
Europe in transition. Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia is one of the important monuments in the history of the world. It was built in the 16th century AD. Now it is preserved as a history museum in Turkey. It is the epitome of the architectural splendors of Constantinople, a city rich in historical monuments. You know the importance of Constantinople in the history of the world. Locate Constantinople, the present Istanbul, the erstwhile capital of the Eastern Roman Empire has a unique place in the history of the world. What were the features of the Constantinople? Center of knowledge, abode of scholars and a treasure trove of scholarly texts, gateway from Asia to Europe. When the Turks conquered Constantinople in 1453, it resulted in the fall of the centuries-old Eastern Roman Empire. Consequently, scholars, artists, and writers fled from Constantinople to nearby areas in great numbers. Many of them migrated to Italy. Italy was a country that upheld the rich grace of Roman tradition. The rich Italian traders were the patrons of art, literature, and culture. These traders were keen to preserve the historical and cultural heritage. Hence, the Italian cities furthered thinking and encouraged the spirit of learning among the immigrant scholars. By the end of the 13th century, the Renaissance, which began in Italy, flourished and spread to other nations. The Renaissance, the fine arts, literature, and history in the medieval period were centered on religious ideology. The texts were invariably written in Greek and Latin, as these languages were considered elite and scholarly. By the dawn of the 13th century, Latin and Greek gave way to regional languages like English, Spanish, and French. The writers of this period adopted the life of the common man as the central theme of their works. The literature of this period was no longer confined to religion and philosophy, but gave way to themes that depicted diverse aspects of human life. Similar changes occurred in other art forms like painting and sculpture. The vision, primarily concerned with the various aspects of human life, is known as humanism. The new spirit of humanism inspired unique thoughts on the universe and human life. It promoted reasoning and the spirit of the inquiry. Consequently, a new awakening in all spheres of human life became visible in Europe, and it is known as Renaissance. Renaissance in literature. Petrarch, AD 1304 to 1374, was one of the eminent writers of the Renaissance period. He is known as the father of Renaissance. The magnum opus of the Petrarch is Secttum. Renaissance in arts. The Renaissance spirit was most pronounced in painting. Leonardo da Vinci was one of the great painters of the period. The Mona Lisa and the Last Supper are his famous paintings. From trade to power. Friends, I am Pepper. Can I invite you to the Europe a few centuries ago? The rural folks in Europe would kill some of their cattle for meat and preserve it for the prolonged winter season. The heavy snowfall in the winter was not favorable for the grass to grow in the cattle fields. Both the people and cattle faced shortage of food during the season. The solution for this was to preserve the cattle meat as food for winter. Remember that there was neither electricity nor refrigerator of any kind during that time. So they found me effective in preserving the meat and making it tastier. In short, I was inevitable for them. My friends, cardamom cinnamon and ginger, all spices like I am, were also loved by them. The traders came in search of us from the time immemorial. From Portugal to Calicut. It was a sunny morning in the month of May 1498. Three huge ships anchored at Kapat near Calicut. The language and dress code of the mariners in the ships were quite different from the native people. They were a group of sailors from Portugal under the leadership of Vasco da Gama. The Samorin, the then ruler of Calicut, Kozhikode, did not provide trading facilities to Vasco da Gama. So he left for Kannur, gathered necessary goods and then returned to Portugal. Almeida and Albuquerque, two sailors from Portugal, reached here for trade following Vasco da Gama. Goa and Dammam and Diu were the major trade centers of the Portuguese. They constructed San Angelo Fort at Kannur and Kottapuram Fort in Thrissur district. The Portuguese were also known as Parangis. Agricultural crops like pineapple, guava, papaya, red chili, cashew, tobacco, etc. that are found in Kerala now were introduced by the Portuguese. The widespread use of printing machine and the development the art of Chavtu Nadagam were some of the impacts of Indo-Portuguese relationship.